Einen wunderschönen guten Tag hier auf der INTERGEO 2012 in Hanover. Welcome to INTERGEO 2012 in Hanover. And with me is somebody who's a really specialist in a very emergency mapping service, is called your presentation. So what is the emergency about it?
So basically, our emergency services, they deal with all natural and man-made catastrophes from an Earth observation perspective. So basically, we generate maps and digital geographic information that help the civil protection and humanitarian aid authorities to cope with post-relief disaster activities.
That's a very special field. It's a very narrow field, but it's also a very exciting field. So I am very excited to hear more about it, and I wish you a lot of good information and have fun.
Thank you. Okay, so I introduce myself. I am Herr Grandoni, working for e-GEOS, an ASI telespazio company. And I will introduce you to the Telespazio Group emergency mapping services and capabilities. So at the first sight, you can have a look at our emergency management center. So this is the place where we do react to our customers and user requests for updated geo information after a natural or man-made disaster. So we have full 24/7 staff, specialists capable to react to such requests. Okay. So some more details about our emergency management center. So we do provide access to both satellite data, that is, let's say, the bread through which we provide our service, and for the rapid generation of our products that are basically, let's say, maps. So our center is active all the year round, both during emergency periods and during peace periods. Because, of course, to react fastly and with effectiveness to a crisis, we must be prepared when a crisis is not there. And therefore, we do regular monitoring of news and events in order to do a fast satellite tasking. But we do also update our reference databases in order to have the most updated geo information all over the world. And we do also review procedures, and we train our staff that is more and more getting increasing capabilities and knowledge. And of course, we set up our archives and catalogs. So you can imagine that our emergency services and our center is a mix of naturally hardware and software resources that are the tools that we use to do our task. But also we have to point out our human resources and procedures that are actually the heart of our emergency service, and that are the things that makes the ball rolling and let us provide the service in an effective way. So, okay, now let's go more in depth into the products. So our service is available 24/7. So you just pick up the phone and call us. And we, in case, of course, you have an emergency request, and we provide you support with customized geospatial products that are grouped into 3 different categories. So basically, reference maps, disaster extent maps, and damage assessment maps. As you can see, the type of events that we are able to cope with are quite variegated. So, of course, all the natural disasters, so flood, fires, earthquakes, as well as complex crises. That is basically when a natural or political crisis occur generally in a new developing country. So you can think of a complex crisis, for instance, in Haiti rather than in the Libyan civil unrest, and so on. And for all these type of events, we generate our standard products. Now let's have a look of what a reference map is. So basically, it is a map with all the basic topographic information, such as the road network, rail network, hydrological network, the built-up areas, and the single building information. So this gives you an overview and details about the pre-event situation, so how things were before an event struck in that area. While a disaster extent map is the first post-event cartographic product that we generate, that is basically a map showing the area that was affected by the disaster, by the event. So it can be, like in this case in Brazzaville, so we can see in orange all the area that was hit by the ammunition deposit explosion, coupled, of course, with all the basic topographic features of the reference map. While the most advanced product is the damage assessment map, that basically gives us more information about the grading of the damage. So here is more damage rather than there. And in this case of Brazzaville, we can see that, of course, the most damaged areas were the one close to the explosion point. Okay, in the past 2 or 3 years, we have been growing in number of activations and in number of product generation, being active in almost every major crisis in the past years. So starting from the Haiti earthquake, moving through the Japan tsunami, and all the major and minor crises in Europe and worldwide, with a huge capacity of product generation. Okay, now let's move to our performances. So the service is available on call 24/7. So you can call even at Christmas and we will pick up the phone and we will hear your request. We have an enhanced capability to access satellite data. So of course we rely on all the 4 satellites of the Cosmos SkyMed generation, as well as other data sources, both from the optical and the SAR domain. And from our operational experience, we are confident to say that we can deliver reference maps within 6 hours from activations, while we need more time for delivering the disaster extent and the damage assessment maps, just because we need to wait for the satellite to acquire a post-event picture over the affected area. Today, our emergency center manages on average 4 or 5 activations per month. That means on average 1 activation per week, generating 5 to 10 cartographic products for each activation, to summing up reference, disaster extent, and damage assessment maps. So now an overview on how it works. So basically you have to think that we are, let's say, always active, because what we call step 0 is pre-activation and anticipation. So the sooner we get the information that a crisis is occurring or is keen to occur in a part of the world, and the sooner we can activate the service, and the sooner we can get updated satellite picture over that area and generate the product. So the step 0 is probably the most relevant one in order to increase our performances. Of course, we receive a request from a customer and we start up the activation. So basically we understand what has happened, where it has happened, and when it has happened, and what is needed, requested by the customer. So basically we organize the activation startup. Then, of course, we proceed with the satellite tasking and we organize the work between ourselves, because as you can imagine, it is not only one center doing all the job, but it is a geographically distributed network of providers that ensure backup solutions and work balancing. And of course, finally, we are in the position to generate and deliver the product to our customer. So this is quite a complex schema. I do not want to go into the details. But as you can imagine, the production workflow is composed by basic image processing and generation of base layers and thematic information extraction, like the flooded area rather than the burnt area, or the single buildings affected after the earthquake. After this work performed by specialists, the map is compiled and delivered in multiple formats to the final customer. Then